everyone, and today I actually want to talk about the two most common abilities you'll see in Splatoon, and that is damage up and defense up, and how much the community doesn't seem to understand how to use either of them correctly. So there'll be a lot of times you'll see someone stacking a lot of damage up or a lot of defense up, and it's usually to, for like chargers, they'll do it so they can like have a X amount of charge and still be able to kill close range, or people run a bunch of defense so they can survive a few more shots. However, there's some problems with the community and understanding the actual effect of these two abilities that lead towards these moments where the people throw a fit about their damage up not being good enough, or the enemy's defense being too much, or their defense not doing anything for them, and so on and so forth. Like, people commonly misunderstand the point of these abilities. So, commonly damage up is used to counter defense up. So for every X amount of defense, you'll want to run X amount of damage, so you'll still kill in your normal amount of shots. However, it seems that the community doesn't actually know how much damage up is needed for the weapons they want to use. So it's very common for weapons like the 52 Gal, you'll see someone running a peer of damage up, which is a main of damage up, and then all three subs are the damage up as well. And people will swear by this fixes the 52 against all defense. However, it only fixes it till about 3 mains of defense. So if there are people running more than 3 mains of defense, then the 52 will turn into a 3-shot again. And there's been plenty of times I've seen people get discouraged and get a little mad when they have their quad or pure, whatever you want to call it, of damage, and they have to take 3 shots to kill X person who's running nothing but defense. And it's funny to sit here and watch these people throw a fit that they don't actually do their own research. And then another thing on the flip side is the people running defense so they can make people require a few more shots, and they themselves don't understand how much defense is needed to counteract the amount of damage someone is running. So say if an enemy that I was playing against was running just that pure of damage up on the 52 Gal, I could know that I could make him turn into a 3-shot if I just wore 3 mains of defense. And so I would run that just purely so I would survive his fights a little more. But the problem is that most people don't seem to realize that, and occasionally people will just throw on a pure of defense, which, believe it or not, doesn't do that much. I mean, a single main of defense up doesn't do that much to most weapons in the game, or most amount of damage people will run on weapons. And it's also with people that run damage up, to correct the amount of shots it takes for certain weapons, that people don't seem to understand what the problem is. I will see people constantly be putting damage up on 10 attack against opponents that aren't running any defense, and they swear that this will fix 4 shots. However, their opponents aren't running any defense, so the only time your gun will be doing 4 shots is if you're playing off fall-off damage. And even then, your damage up will probably fix that to be 3 shots. However, most people will complain that they lost an exchange due to defense, and it's very common, and I see it a lot and I hear it a lot, but the reality is with weapons such as 10 attack, believe it or not, the only difference between a 3-shot and a 4-shot with a 10 attack is only 6 frames. And Splatoon runs at 60 a second. So think about that. It's only a 6-frame difference, and in reality, if you're running a bunch of run speed up on 10 attack, which most people do, you'll want to be outmaneuvering your other opponent as well. So if you're truly complaining about 6 frames, then maybe you should work on strafing a little better, rather than trying to put on this ability that you don't quite understand. There are a lot of sites out there that can be used to help you calculate how much damage up is needed to counter defense. I'll even put one that I use in the description. But it's not too hard to look this up. Unfortunately, the dummies in the training area are what cause these problems, because the dummies can only go up to 3 mains of defense, when sometimes you'll see people out in in battle running 3 mains and 9 subs of defense. Now, another thing is people will run defense with ink resistance or without ink resistance. And the amount of times I've seen people run 3 mains and 9 subs of defense, then run carelessly into enemy ink, get themselves damaged from it, die in 3 shots to a 10 attack or 2 shots to a 52, and then complain that their defense isn't doing anything. Well, that's because you just ran through enemy ink. You took like half of your health away just by doing that alone without ink resistance. Let alone just adding ink resistance isn't going to fix most of it if you're going to be running through enemy ink. Ink resistance only saves you for about a decent amount of damage, not enough to keep your defense from making a 10 attack a 3 shot. If you stand in enemy ink long enough, even with ink resistance, even if you have the 2 mains and 9 subs of defense, a 10 attack will still 3 shot you. It's just that most people don't seem to understand that, and they just blame the defense not working. The problem is the community doesn't want to actually put forth the research and time to figure out how much they actually need. So commonly they'll overstack it, or they won't use enough to fix their problems or to counteract the enemy. And so a lot of the times you'll hear these people complaining that they're still having to hit someone 3 shots or 4 shots or however many extra shots it takes, when in reality it's their own mistake because they don't know how much damage up they need to run. And the best part is, with gear editing, you can make sets that are specific to countering that much defense. Like I have gear that is specifically used to make sure the 96 will 2 shot even against 3 mains and 9 subs of defense. Now, of course, my gear, the route I took was to make it so not all my gears were pure. So the shoes that I use for the 96 are Inksaber's main, and then has 1 sub of Inksaber main, and then the remaining 2 subs are damage up. And I couple that with another pure of damage up, and another 3 subs of damage up. That will allow the 96, and in turn it will actually allow the 52 to counter all defense. And I got that from researching. I got them from testing, and I got that from looking it up. And that's something the community doesn't really seem to want to do, is to put forth that time to figure that out. And so instead of blaming themselves for not researching and putting the time forth, they blame the game and their ability for not working, or just the enemy's ability being too good. And it's pretty annoying to see, and I hope that some people will decide to start looking into these things more, especially because gear editing is a thing. You can make specific sets to counteract these things. You can make your own 10 attack set that'll counter all defense. That way, in case you have an opponent that you play in a scrim or a tournament that's just running 3 mains and 9 subs, you have that set that you can use to counteract it all. But more often than not, you'll just see people slap on a pure of damage up and just call it a day, and then complain later on that they're still having to 3-shot or 4-shot or whatever it is. It's just that people don't put in the time to research. And this may not apply to everyone. Like, if you're a casual player that is watching this, you may not be too bothered by it, by the defense meta or whatever it is, the damage up, whatever it is. It may not affect you. However, for the few that are here and the few that have complained that their damage up isn't enough, or they resorted to switching to overkill amounts of damage. So say if someone is running 3 mains and 9 subs of defense, and this guy with a quad of damage up on his 10 attack is mad, he may throw in another quad, which may or may not be overkill, but it's the thing that, once again, they don't want to research that. They don't want to make their specific gear to handle that. And so a lot of the times they'll just complain and go overboard with the amount of damage up. So basically what I'm saying here is that the community in fact doesn't quite understand damage up and defense up, and it's been over a year. There are some that use it correctly, like they'll use it to fix fall off damage, which is fair, that's fine. and there are some that will make specific sets to counteract the amount of defense that the opponent uses. And then there are the people that just run 3 mains and 9 subs of damage and call it good, and just assume that that's going to fix all their problems, when in fact they could be using a lot more of those slots on something more useful towards the weapon. So I hope that everyone that is watching this has decided to take a little bit more time into researching the weapons and the damage and how much defense or damage up you need to act against other players that are running the similar abilities. And I hope that at some point I can see people stop complaining and blaming the other players for their own mistakes.